affected by it.
Of course, as far as Jersey is concerned, absolutely integral part is the Jersey law profession. When I came to Jersey, there were about 60 Jersey lawyers. There are now 250 or so Jersey lawyers. But the difference now is they're all over the world. They've got offices. They're multi-million-pound business enterprises. They're not little domestic, local-based lawyer firms. They're all over the world. What do you think about that development? Has that got implications for it?
Yes, I think I think there is in a sense you can say that offshore is not in the offshore system. Jersey is not an island. Jersey is, the offshore system is one place. It is one seamless. There is a seamless flow of sort of frictionless flow of finance within the offshore system, and that's one of the great reasons for its existence, is the sort of stripping away of anything that will slow down money. But I think that also, if you're thinking about offshore as a place, it means that it's so closely connected that there's nothing.
The reason, what puzzles me about that is that it was the very jurisdictional uniqueness of Jersey and Guernsey and the Isle of Man that allowed them to have this business to suddenly erupt here, because they weren't English law, they weren't European law. But it seems to me that they might be endangering their own activity. If they become international, they lose that unique localized jurisdiction. Do you think that's a possibility? You think they might spread themselves?
I think these companies that spread themselves widely across the world, I think financially they benefit. They clearly benefit from it. They benefit partly because these structures that are created are so multi-jurisdictional. They have to, that's where they are, and they are in this kind of nowhere zone. My opening chapter in chapter 1 in Treasure Islands is called "Welcome to Nowhere," and it's a place where it's elsewhere. It's not here. The business that's going on in Jersey is about stuff the real stuff is going on elsewhere. The real trade and the building of properties or whatever, the ownership is elsewhere. But it's always about pushing responsibility away from where you are. But this becomes one big nowhere zone, and I don't think that's particularly necessarily a risk for these firms for somehow disassociating themselves from Jersey itself or the individual jurisdictions itself. I think the risk is to the dangers that are being created for people elsewhere, and I think that's the political changes that are going on in the world now. I think we haven't had a calamity. Back in the 1930s, you had, the Great Depression was enough of a political shock to the system to see huge revolutionary political changes around the world, the New Deal in the United States and so on. And we haven't yet got to that point, and it's more, there have been some pretty bad things happening in Greece, Ireland, and other places, but I think mainstream countries, the United States, we're still not quite, we don't feel like we've gone over the edge of a precipice, and I think until that happens, we're not going to see
the British government
change.
Does take action from time to time. There was the SARC lark, which was quite infamous some years ago, and obviously the British government caused that to be more or less closed down. SARC is pretty much ineffective. The Turks and Caicos, they had to intervene. So, pushed to the extreme, the British government will respond. Do you think there's any more inclination now for the British government to respond to places like Jersey?
I don't think at the moment. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I think the last government was very bad. The Labour government was very bad in just letting all this stuff happen and just letting the city get on with what it wants. This government is much more aggressive and actively supporting the system. The finance bill encouraging multinational companies to realise their income in tax havens and pay a very small, certain categories of income and pay a very small tax rate on that. That's a sort of really aggressive move to support the use of satellite tax havens, but also to make the UK itself more of a tax haven in its own right. So I think from the point of view of this government, there's, one shouldn't hold out hope that this government is there. What is changing, though, is the people in Britain are really, there is a real realisation that something is wrong. I don't think the party politicians have yet begun to catch up with that, but I think there is it's still quite a hazy understanding there's something quite wrong with big finance in the city, and I think there's still a long way to go, but I think this is where the hope for change comes, and I think the politicians will follow, and we'll see.
You mentioned some large countries which are in dire financial situation: Greece, Italy, France. In fact, virtually all of Europe seems to be in this dire situation. what's the implication for places like Jersey and Guernsey? Because obviously finance industry is decreasing, so it appears, on they. If they have serious financial collapses here, what would happen to what can happen to places like Jersey?
Do you mean financial collapses of
Well,
Jersey?
the amount of business that has to be generated and the amount of tax revenue that has to be generated to make Jersey viable.
Yeah.
There's a question there, GST and so on. They're imposing more and more taxes on working people.
Yeah.
They're having to raise the money. I mean, not to dwell on the matter. If you're going to be a tax haven, you have to have low taxes, and therefore you don't provide essential services. That's the way you operate. You provide lesser services. But it's getting to the point now, so it seems, in Jersey, where even the lesser services are having to be cut back. It'll get to a critical point, won't it? This place will not be viable.
Well, I mean, Jersey's big problem, of course, is that it is a kind of monoculture economy. It is a finance economy. And my previous book about oil and politics in West Africa looked at countries that were dependent on another thing, oil. And what happened back in the sort of late 90s, there was the oil price fell down to $10 a barrel, and what you tended to see happen was the rich people generally, okay, they lost a bit of money, but they basically just took it all out of the poor. And I'm worried that that's what's going to happen in Jersey. The rich will find, the wealthiest sections of societies will find ways to preserve their income and their wealth. They'll take a bit of a hit, but I think, generally, in a place like this, where I'm absolutely shocked at the governance of this place, the ability, the absolute impunity of the elites here. It's incredible. It feels so British to come here, but the political system is so alien, so weird. I don't hold out much hope that a system that is governed like this has the ability to cushion the poor from the shocks. I think they have the ability to look after themselves and to just make the poor pay, and there's not much the poor can do about it. The political mechanisms don't seem to be there.
Well, of course, the old expression here is "there's a boat in the morning," which is, for poor people, that is possibly what a lot of people will have to do. It's happened in the past. Exodus is nothing new to small territories like Jersey. From your talking to people, obviously you've been touring the world with your book, from politicians that you meet, are they waking up?
Some are. I think we're not yet at a strong enough point yet where we can say that there's a lot going on. There are little defences being put in here and there. Statements being made. The European Union is, trying quite hard to do things. At the moment, the European Union, though, is being dramatically undermined by Switzerland, which has just signed some horrendous tax and secrecy deals with the UK and with Germany that have sort of an attempt to cut the legs out from under European transparency arrangements that affect Jersey as well. And so, there is already, when there are politicians that try to do something about it, the forces of offshore are so powerful, they're able to really kind of cut the legs out from under them. So there's a long way to go, there's a lot of battles to fight. And I think the key to this is public consciousness. I think voters need to wake up to this, and you also need the economics profession to wake up to this. There has been a complete blindness in the economics profession to the offshore system. They don't understand it. You can't measure it. You can't, it just doesn't compute.
There are plenty of organisations out there which are apparently supposed to have some sort of responsibility. OECD, United Nations, European Union, or various organisations. The what's the other name? IMF.
Yeah.
Have they grasped the problem? Have they?
Well, the IMF, the World Bank have shied away from it. They're terrified of it. They don't touch it. You can't get them to talk about it. The OECD has been, the G20 leaders back in April 2009. They had they made a big statement saying the era of banking secrecy is over. And the message was, we're now going to crack down on tax havens. And I remember when I was writing my book, and there's a lot about this in the newspapers, and I had friends saying to me, "Oh, you're writing the wrong book now. They're going to, the problem is fixed." And what happened was they mandated the OECD, the Club of Rich Countries, to carry out the work of cracking down on tax havens. Now, the OECD had a black, white and grey list of countries, tax haven countries, those that were beyond the pale. And within 5 days, of that of that G20 statement, the era of banking secrecy is over, 5 days later the blacklist was empty. That's how serious the OECD crackdown was. Now the OECD has since then done a few limited things that have tinkered around the edges, made some marginal improvements, but essentially the system is still in place. Jersey, along with all the other tax havens, says we are not a tax haven, we are a responsible financial centre, we are transparent, cooperative, well regulated. It is absolutely false. There is these OECD, they base these statements on the fact that organisations such as the OECD and the Financial Action Task Force and so on have put them on their white lists. But these white lists are based on mechanisms that they're not worthless, but they're only slightly better than nothing. And so these mean almost nothing. A much more serious investigation into where the real secrecy is conducted by the Tax Justice Network, an organisation that I work with. Recently they put out a financial secrecy index that is a very deep investigation into the specific secrecy mechanisms that jurisdictions around the world provide, and Jersey scores very badly on that. It scores,
just to finish up, possibly you might be able to give us a bit of hope when you're travelling around various jurisdictions like Jersey. Have you any evidence that local people are beginning to understand what the problem is?
Well, I really got a feeling on this. I have got a feeling on this visit. I went to the hustings at St Saviour's a couple of nights ago, and I really did detect an anger there, even among the candidates standing up, even candidates who I think are conservative part of the establishment, really saying there's something wrong with governance here. Think things really are broken. There really wasn't anger. There were people talking about not only the super rich in Jersey are getting away with nothing, and we're having to pick up the tab for that, but also people even saying we don't accept the fact that foreigners are coming and avoiding taxes in their own country using Jersey, and that's to hear that in public is it's encouraging in a way. I mean, it's the result of hardship, I think, the result of things taking a turn for the worse, but it is at least encouraging to see people expressing a political consciousness that I didn't really see outside of quite a small group before. I think things have changed a bit in that respect. There is an anger. I don't suppose it's strong enough to overturn anything important yet, but we'll see where it goes.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.